GOP governors seem to forget the fact that the health and welfare of their constituents is their responsibility. Yet they continue to speak out against Biden's vaccine mandates, despite the skyrocketing numbers of new coronavirus cases. Now, Mississippi is one of the states that's not doing well. In fact, before we get to some of the statements coming from Mississippi's governor, just want to note that Mississippi has the highest death toll per capita from COVID-19 in the United States, and that's according to Johns Hopkins University. Nearly 1 out of every 320 people in Mississippi have died of coronavirus. Let me also note that the national average is 1 in 500 Americans. So obviously Mississippi is doing even worse. The state also has one of the lowest rates of vaccination in the country, with about 42% of all residents fully vaccinated, trailing the national average of around 54%, according to the CDC. Now, with that said, Tate Reeves was asked to address this during an interview with Jake Tapper, and it didn't go well for Reeves. Let's watch.
Mississippi this week became the state with the worst number of coronavirus deaths per capita. In fact, if Mississippi were its own country, you would be second in the world only to Peru in terms of deaths per capita. That's a horrible, horrible, heartbreaking statistic. So with all due respect, Governor, your way is failing. Are you gonna try to change anything to change this horrible statistic from what you're doing already?
Yeah, well, obviously in Mississippi, our legislature is a part-time legislature. Sometimes I wonder if in America, if our Congress was part-time, we wouldn't be in a better position. But let's talk a little bit about
better position than
Mississippi
what?
And where we are with the virus.
Second worst in the world.
I mean, what was that argument? What was that? What was that garbage? Yeah. First of all, Congress barely works. I mean, they take several weeks of recess so they can do their fundraising. He's saying that, like, no, maybe the solution is the legislators in Mississippi should work less?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. First of all, we criticize Jake Tapper often, but credit where credit is due, that was excellent. That's how you should challenge politicians. And so now in the case of the governor, you schmuck, what?
That was the dumbest answer.
Did you not know that they were gonna ask you about how Mississippi is the very worst state in the country about COVID? How could you not prepare for that? Of course he's gonna ask you that question. Maybe you thought he was gonna ask it more politely, but obviously he's gonna ask it. And you didn't have a better talking point ready. Instead, your talking point was one that doesn't have any logical connection to this issue. You're like, well, if Congress worked less, then maybe we'd do better in Mississippi with COVID? Because they're dummies, they're dumb. I don't mean the voters in this case, I mean the politicians. How does a guy like that get elected if he's that unintelligent? Because they don't want a smart politician, they just want an order taker. The donors come and go, hey, who's some dummy that's shameless here who'll do whatever we tell him to do? This poor son of a bitch raised his hand and was like, I'll take orders, just give me money, I'll do whatever you need. So he goes on TV and embarrasses himself with a nonsense talking point that doesn't have any logical connection to this issue at all.
Well, we're just getting warmed up because the second part of his answer was pretty bad as well. Let's watch.
If Mississippi were a country, you would have the second worst per capita death toll in the world. And I'm saying, are you going to do anything to try to change that?
Jake, as I mentioned earlier, deaths, unfortunately, are a lagging indicator. Let's talk about where we are and why we are there. In large part, just like the summer of 2020, it was the Sun Belt states that saw the initial surge from the Delta variant. It started, the first state that I saw seeing upticks was Missouri, and then it was Arkansas, and then it was Louisiana, and now it's Mississippi. Our surge went from less than 100 cases per day in Mississippi to 3,600, much like what happened in the country of Israel, much like what happened in the country of Great Britain and in England. We saw a very quick spike, and now we're seeing a very quick decline in the total number of cases.
What quick decline? What is he talking about? There is no quick decline. You have what was the number? It's insane. 1 in 320 people in Mississippi have died from coronavirus, and this guy is like, we're doing great. And then I love how he like listed all the failures of these red states as if that was some sort of ode. Like, oh yeah, you know, Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, really bad numbers. Anyway, what was that again?
All right, no, the answer was hilarious in every way. First of all, of course, let's knock down the things that aren't true. Mississippi is just like Israel. No, it's not. Israel did a great job of getting the vaccine to people as quick as any country in the world. And even when the Delta variant hit, they were prepared because they were an enormous percentage of Israelis were vaccinated. So they had people getting sick, but not people dying. Great Britain, UK, same thing. So they got hit super hard with the Delta variant, and a lot of people got sick because they were one of the first countries to get hit by Delta variant, but they didn't die because they were vaccinated. Not at all what's happening in Mississippi. He's saying, well, it's a lagging indicator. Death is a lagging indicator. Yeah, first you knuckleheads got sick, then you died. That's how it works. That's what a lagging indicator is. That doesn't prove, what does that prove? Why would you bother saying that? That doesn't, if anything, that proves that you've been doing it wrong for longer. And then he's like, now remember, Jake, it's only the dumbass red states that are getting sick and then dying. How does that help your case?
Man, he really like did not prepare talking points for this interview. Like he didn't even do the bare, like usually these types of politicians, like they prepare lies, right? To like hit him back, hit him back when they're asked tough questions. He didn't even try. That was embarrassing. Honestly, like the people of Mississippi should definitely vote this guy out. He's representing you. He's the governor from your state. That was, even if you agree with him in not pushing the vaccine, in not protecting the constituents in the state, like the way he handled that interview was just an embarrassment.
Even if you agree with him that Mississippi should lead the country and the world in number of deaths per capita because God forbid you should actually protect your own citizens, he's still not the right way to do it because he's such a dummy. He can't even, well, to be fair, that is an indefensible position, but he didn't even try.
He can't even lie in a persuasive way, and politicians are usually pretty good at that.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, Jake, now you gotta remember, it's all the Republicans that are dummies. Gee, I wonder how you would wind up being last in the world.
It's amazing. All right, well, he's not the only one. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has also discussed how vaccine mandates are a bad idea. He's against them. During an interview with Eric Erickson on his podcast, he said, quote, "That is basically how the AIDS vaccine worked. People wouldn't take it early on because it was mandated. They started educating people, and now it is doing a lot of good out there. Same scenario, different year, and we are dealing with right now." So that was his statement. The only problem is there is no AIDS vaccine. So what was that about? Well, he actually made that similar statement in other interviews. So it's not like he made that argument once or twice. Now, a fact check from Atlanta TV station 11 Alive rated Kemp's claims false and noted that the governor has made similar comments about AIDS vaccines at least 2 other times over the past year. When reached for comment by the station, Kemp's office said he meant to mention the human papillomavirus or HPV vaccine. But even this statement raises eyebrows. The HPV vaccine is also mandated in a number of states to attend public schools, among other vaccines, by the way. A campaign that has been largely effective in getting school-age children vaccinated. By the way, that vaccine prevents cervical cancer. So pretty serious vaccine that has done a lot of good, much like the coronavirus vaccine.
It saved an unbelievable amount of lives.
Yeah.
So look, guys, sometimes they lie in such crazy ways that I'm perplexed. Like I get thrown off for a second. I'm like, wait, they have a vaccine for AIDS? I don't have a vaccine for AIDS. And then I got to go and search to double check, right? No, there's no vaccine for AIDS. I'll tell you, I guarantee you this is how it happened. He read in some report somewhere that about the HPV vaccine, and the knucklehead thought it was HIV. And so he assumed that it was for AIDS, and he never logically thought, we have an AIDS vaccine? And it's was mandated, wasn't mandated, all these different things. Like none of that makes any sense. And he just thought, turns out we got an AIDS vaccine. And then, the best way is to not mandate it. And then he said that wrong several times.
Yep.
And either no one in his staff is smart enough to understand that there is no AIDS vaccine and their dumbass governor is making an obvious mistake, or they think, what difference does it make? We're Republicans. Who cares if it's true? And they didn't bother correcting him, which, by the way, it was Trumpism 101.
Absolutely. And by the way, you go to another red state, the state of Alabama, which saw its population shrink for the first time in 2020 as a result of coronavirus. And the lawmakers in that state are speaking out against the vaccine mandate that Biden has implemented, which, by the way, only impacts companies that employ 100 people or more. And even so, employees can still opt out as long as they submit to COVID testing every week. So to be quite honest with you, with the exception of the federal employees and the mandate that they have to follow through on, Biden's vaccine mandate for the vast majority of workers in this country is pretty weak, but they're crying about it anyway. Now, speaking to reporters, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Scott Harris said this: here in Alabama, we continue to see deaths at a really high rate. 2020 is going to be the first year that we know of in the history of our state where we actually had more deaths than births. Our state literally shrunk in 2020 based on the numbers that we have managed to put together, and actually by quite a bit. We're continuing to have double-digit numbers of deaths reported on most days. Over the past several days, we have had typically 40 or 50 or sometimes 60 deaths a day. That's in one state.
And that's a relatively small state. And so 2020 already broke the record in Alabama, 2021 is worse. And by the way, 2021 didn't have to be worse. It's not worse in the blue states because a lot more people are vaccinated. So when we got hit with the second wave, people got sick, but they didn't die. And a lot of people didn't get sick that would have. But in the red states, since they're very unvaccinated, they're getting sick and dying at record rates, even though we have the vaccine available. The rest of the world is begging us for the vaccine, and we won't give it to them. And we have these knuckleheads who won't take it and are dying at record rates.
And finally, Alabama, yes, is suing to block vaccine mandates. So that's where they stand on that issue. And the death toll is a good indicator of where they stand on that issue.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.